No, I think I mean, like you said, I always find that tax planning is super important. And one thing that a lot of, especially retirees, um, don't think about, they just think, and actually I have this working assumption, and I'd be curious what your thoughts are on it, is most people think like, oh, I'm going to get taxed less because I'm older or in retirement, right? And that's just a myth, right? Because the tax rates are the tax rates. No, it doesn't matter how old
Yeah.
you are. So it is kind of like, oh no, I didn't know this.
Mhm.
Yeah. And this is a big one. I'm glad you brought that up about assuming you'll be taxed less in retirement when you're older, however you choose to view it. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. And I'm sure a topic and a conversation you frequently have, and people listening probably have, is something like, should I contribute to my traditional pre-tax 401k or my Roth flavor of my 401k?
Yeah.
Should I do Roth conversions, which is, consciously taking money out of the pre-tax world, paying tax on it now, putting it into the Roth world to eventually take out tax-free if you meet, certain holding criteria and stuff like that. That's a tough one. That's a lot of educated guessing, speculation about the future. So we know now, current year, what your income is, what tax rates are, what your effective tax rate is going to be. So we can easily figure out how much tax you'll have to pay or how much tax you can defer by making, a traditional pre-tax 401k contribution. What we don't know is, fast forward 20, 30, 40 years in the future, what effective tax rate you're going to pay on taking that money out, right? So the best we can do is make, again, educated assumptions. I'll call them guesses, for lack of a better word. You can use financial planning software to help,
Yeah.
but unless you know with certainty what tax legislation is going to do over the rest of your life, which nobody knows. We don't know what 5 years is going to look like, let alone 30 years from now.
Sure.
How the markets are going to perform, and that'll drive how your different account balances go up or go down. Um, your own personal circumstances, longevity, when you're going to die, if you end up leaving this world in 2 years, and frankly, none of this stuff might matter, depending what you're planning for, whether it's you or your kids or something. So we don't know. And even if we were to know tax legislation and what tax rates and tax brackets will be in 10, 20, 30 years, that's
Mhm.
only half the equation. The other half is what's your actual taxable income. And we don't know. And that's going to be a function of what's your social security going to be, your pension, if you have it, dividends and interest from brokerage accounts, money that is in pre-tax accounts like IRAs, 401ks. How much is that going to grow between now and decades from now? How much you're going to have to take out in the form of required distributions or voluntarily take out? Put all those things in a pot and cook it. That's going to be your taxable income. You need to know that as well as the tax brackets. There's no way you can know either of those with certainty decades down the road. It's just all, again, educated guessing. So it makes it hard to know what to do.
Yeah, I like that. And one thing I like to think about is I'm always, a lot of times we hear the question, do you think taxes are going to go up or stay the same? Right. And everybody always has the same assumption. And I fall in the same category. However, I'm also a believer in the unlikely sometimes happens, right? And there's nothing that says that for whatever reason, there's wars going on and taxes do drop. It's possible.
Yeah.
Unlikely.
Yeah.
I'm not on that side, but it's possible, right?
Agree. I'm of the mindset that tax rates, the federal tax environment has to go up, has to get worse. By how much? Nobody knows.
Right.
In what form will those increases take? It may not be as simple as just raising the tax rates themselves. It could be other forms of taxes, like one example, and this doesn't apply to everyone, but this didn't exist until I want to say 2013, perhaps. The net investment income tax, not to get too off the rails here, but this was something that came out of nowhere as part of the Affordable Care Act. The government sort of subsidized and mandated health insurance plan program. It's a way to help bring in additional tax revenue for Affordable Care Act. And it's something where if you're married and have over 250 grand of income, I think 200 grand if you're single, any passive investment income like dividends, interest, capital gains get an additional 3.8% federal tax applied.
Mhm.
No one could have fathomed that 20 years prior, right? So like that's an example of a tax increase that we don't know if something like that's going to pop out of the blue down the road. It can, right? So anyway, so I do think the tax environment will be more punitive, but again, remember the other input to how much tax you actually pay is not just the tax rates and brackets, but your taxable income.
Right.
You need to know both of those things. Now, taxable income, I think you can probably better sort of guesstimate. For example, to come back to like, should I do pre-tax contributions now to my 401k or do Roth? If you are 50, you're in your highest earning years, you're making 500 grand a year, you might already be in the 30+% something tax bracket. Are you going to be in that high of a tax bracket in the future? Probably not. Even if federal tax rates do go up a lot, what's the chance of you having $400,000 or $500,000 of annual income in retirement, right? When your wages stop? Probably not likely. Now, good for you if you do, from whatever, who knows, you have this investment that strikes it huge and you get a lot of money from it. But I think in a scenario like that, it's a little easier to say, okay, I'm paying 37% federal tax now. I probably should do a pre-tax contribution with my money because I don't think I'm going to be paying 37% in the future. Where it gets hard is when you're in the teens or 20-ish% tax bracket now. It's not so easy. It's not so clear. Am I going to be in a lower tax scenario in retirement? Maybe you will, maybe you won't. This is where it's kind of like, maybe you hedge yourself a little bit. There isn't going to be a mathematically right answer necessarily because of all the assumptions you have to make about how much should I have in Roth versus traditional pre-tax versus regular brokerage accounts. The guidance I give folks is like where it's not a slam dunk, obvious, slap you in the face sort of answer like I just gave before with, super high earner whose wages are going to stop eventually. Just spread it around, have what I call a quote unquote healthy mix, if you can, of savings in pre-tax accounts, Roth accounts, and then, regular brokerage assets, and even alternative forms of things like cash value life insurance. I'm not saying people should or shouldn't consider it, but it is an asset class in and of itself. Mm-hmm. It can be, tapped for loans where those loans aren't taxable when you get them. So that could be a supplemental source of income down the road to form a comprehensive retirement income plan. But the plan will look different for different people for different reasons. I'm just saying there's multiple options out there. I think generally speaking, it's not good to go all in with just one thing. Sure. Like don't put all your money into a pre-tax 401k. Don't put all your money into a Roth version. Maybe you're overdoing it with the Roth. You're paying too much tax now by not taking advantage of some tax deferral now. Don't put all your money into cash value life insurance. Don't put all your money into a brokerage account, right?
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Cutitta and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by ToBA Financial. For Jason Cutitta, investment advisory services are offered through ToBA Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.